Hello survivors and welcome to First Aid Spray, a Resident Evil podcast by fans for fans. This is Season 5, it's episode 61, and in this edition we will be discussing the long-awaited latest offering of online RE multiplayer in our immediate reaction to Resident Evil RE-verse. My name is Sai, and joining me on the panel this week, kill streaks, delays and battle passes, oh my, it's Kelsey aka KDB.
Hello.
If you strike him down, he will become more Hunter Gamma than you can possibly imagine. It's Moist Owlet, aka James.
Hello.
And we're going to put him in a helmet covered in goggles to see if we can sneak him into the game. It's Fire Button Steve Valance.
Oh, sick. Playable Steve.
Every episode of First Aid Spray is recorded live on our Discord server, so join now to hear the show early and unedited and to become part of our fantastic little community where we discuss life, the universe and Resident Evil. You can find a link to the server as well as all of our social media profiles at our website faspraypod.com. It's the support of our listeners that keeps First Aid Spray going, so why not check out our merchandise or our Patreon page. Tiers begin at just $1 a month. Head over to patreon.com/faspraypod for a full list and a chance to create bonus First Aid Spray content. Housekeeping, we have a brand new episode of Now That's What I Call Survival Horror, which has recently dropped for our Patreon supporters. If you are a Tyrant or a Mastermind tier patron, you can go check out the new episode, which is all about Resident Evil 4. Kelsey picked his top 10 tracks from the soundtrack, and we had a very good time digging into a very different episode of the show. It was good indeed. And yes, if you aren't a Patreon supporter, just $5 will get you early access to episodes of Now That's What I Call Survival Horror, as well as our bonus episodes in general. Most recently, the Castlevania Symphony of the Night episode has come out for the public, so if you haven't checked that out, that is on your podcast feeds and on YouTube, digging deeply into that classic video game. And also, in case you missed it, on our 4th anniversary, would you believe it, 28th of November, we dropped a First Aid Spray question and answer podcast with questions supplied by you, the listeners, and answered by the four of us here tonight, plus Sherwin, live and in person, which was really fun. Episode seems to have gone down a treat. So yes, if you are a big First Aid Spray fan, if you haven't listened to that yet, I highly recommend it. And also, while we're there, shout out to everyone at the end of the year putting us, posts up on Twitter and Instagram being like, here's my Spotify Wrapped, I love your podcast. Appreciate all of you very, very much. But that's us. Steve, would you like to take us into the Biohazard news?
Light bit of news this week. There is now new Japanese Resident Evil merchandise, including a First Aid Spray and First Aid Bed. What exactly are these? Air fresheners?
One of them is the First Aid Meds, an air freshener. It's one of those, I don't know what you call them, like just like an open bottle with the sticks. That's I don't know what the word is, but yeah, they make your room smell nice. And the First Aid Spray is actually just an empty spray can with nothing in it. So I guess you could, yeah, no,
air diffuser.
Air diffuser. There you go. Thank you, Steve.
That's what they're called.
Yeah, you're right. Just found some logic to my nonsense. But yes, the First Aid Spray has nothing in it. So you can put what you like in it, ? Or just put it to one side. They are available for... The First Aid Spray is 880 yen, and they are Japanese exclusive, which is about £5.30. And the diffuser is... over triple that price, so it's about 15-20 quid plus however much it takes you to import these from Japan. James, quite famously, you've talked about how stupid and awful the merchandise for Resident Evil has been recently in terms of t-shirts that you can recreate and Photoshop in 5 minutes. Shouldn't we be getting things like these?
Yeah, we should be. It's cool. Like, we want something from the games to hold.
Yeah,
for sure. And they're so recognizable as well. Like from Resident Evil, you can't get in the gaming sphere. You can't get confused with any of the Resident Evil stuff with any other game.
Yeah,
it's I saw. Speaking of the merch that Capcom released recently, someone I can't remember them right now. They're on my Twitter. I'll throw in a link later on, but. They made these amazing pieces of art of all the characters in Resident Evil that I don't know what even the style is. It's kind of very similar to Berserk-like style, but not quite. It's its own unique... And it's that is the... If it's going to be on a t-shirt, something unique like that, they need to hire these people. They need to hire people instead of hiring graphics designers who can just copy paste.
Yeah, just using renders that already exist.
It's really silly.
Yeah, you're right.
Like I do, like, you know, I've had a lot of people come to me and say, you know, they want this and that from the game, and they have to go to Etsy for that. You know, they have to go to like somewhere where it's not, you know, someone's unofficially made it, and that can always be a little bit of a minefield as well. Like, there are people who want to buy these things. So Capcom, please get on it.
Absolutely, you know, I mean, it's hard not to see something like, you can buy a first aid spray can, even if it's empty. I'm kind of like, I should probably own one, just, you know, branding and everything. It feels a little bit weird that I don't have one. Steve, if they made these available, surely you'd be tempted.
Yeah, definitely. It always kind of annoyed me that there's like Japanese exclusive restaurants, and energy drink connoisseur that I am, there was the T-virus antidote, you know, and various other bits of cool merch that never makes it overseas. So I would love like a first aid spray or a first aid med thing to just like, you know, put on a shelf and go, look at that. Useless in an emergency, but still looks kind of neat.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the meantime, we've got the RE board game, the figures, and I suppose airsoft guns. It's a little bit limited in terms of what we can actually get over here, and kind of cool like bits of like knickknacks and merch. It's a shame.
I actually had one of those T-virus antidote things, by the way. I did come across one in the wild, and they're just so like, basically a company just fills loads of cans with the same drink and slaps a different thing on it. I'm pretty sure, because I had a Ghostbusters one, a Gears of War one, a Mega Man one, a Resident Evil one. They all tasted exactly the same. But I did keep the empty can for a while, just because I was like, look, a Resident Evil thing that's not just a boring T-shirt. There you go. Kelsey, any thoughts on the state of Resident Evil merch?
I got loads of thoughts. I won't rant, though. All I'll say is we moved house this year, and the first room that we decorated was the downstairs toilet, and I thought it was complete, but now I've seen that diffuser, I know that there's something missing from the toilet. So
there you go.
I'd like to have one.
Japanese import. Here you come.
Yes, please.
Can I add on the sweet merch I found earlier?
Yeah.
So there is an artist and a website called hungerclub.co.uk. Go check it out, because the artwork they have on these, oh, they're so good and they deserve your money. I want one of these T-shirts.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Cool. Well, that is indeed the light news for this week, which is...
Good podcast, everybody. It's been fun.
Indeed. Leaves us with the main subject for this episode, which is, of course, Resident Evil RE-verse. And now, reading the file A Maid's Diary from Resident Evil Village, Zoe Truen, who you can follow on Twitter at Zoe Truen.
June 9th, 1958. It was my first day working at the castle today. I was most shocked to see the masters of the house were all women. The mistress and her daughters were very adamant that they wouldn't bite. It was quite peculiar. June 23rd, 1958. It's been 2 weeks since I started working at the castle, and I am a little... afraid. Another maid, Adela, made a mistake and Miss Daniela slashed her face with a knife. And at night, I can hear wailing, as if ghosts roam the halls. I want to go home. July 8th, 1958. I don't know what to do. The young ladies were complaining it was too hot and stuffy during dinner, so I opened the window just a crack. Shut it! Shut it now! They all shrieked at me in unison. I fear I may be taken down into the cellar, never to be seen of again. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
So, we have arrived at another long-awaited Resident Evil release, question mark? To give this some really specific context, talking about the Q&A episode that we did a little while ago, Kelsey, you brought up the fact that when you joined First Aid Spray officially, we were going to announce you joining the team on the RE-verse episode. You know, the RE-verse episode that was going to come out immediately following Resident Evil Village, but then never happened. And here we are. a year and a half or so later. REverse obviously originally meant to drop at the same time as Resident Evil Village. You get your code with your game, you put it in, off you go. But no, instead of May 2021, it has arrived October 28th, 2022, along with Village's DLC. And we've had a couple of updates in the last month and a bit, and we'll probably get onto that, and we'll cover the updates as they go along in our news segments from now onwards, I suppose. But before we actually get into the game as it stands now, let's dial back the clock a little bit to April or whatever it was of 2021 when we had the public beta, to sort of get everybody's actual first takes on the game, first hands-on experiences with the public beta. Steve, how did you find your first experiences with REverse a year and a half or so ago now?
I think we went over this, didn't we? I was like one of the few that didn't get a chance to play it till time. Am I going crazy? I remember watching people play it, but I never had a chance to have hands on myself.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, not to be a party pooper straight out of the gate, but yeah, I was one of those that missed the initial boat.
Well, even that being said, you not having played it, what was your interest level from watching other people play it and seeing the general community reaction, I guess?
To put a finer word on it, probably tepid. Like, I'm not against competitive third-person shooters. Heck, I'm in danger of being potentially good at them sometimes. But in this case, like, didn't really grasp me. Like, it wasn't until we all started talking about it out of podcasts and we were doing like the Q&A stuff, the what do we call it, the wishlist stuff, that really got me in any way truly warming up to the idea of the game. Like, someone says, "Oh yeah, plays iconic Resident Evil characters." Yes, I'm interested. And you're just killing each other. I was turned off from the get-go from the second that was uttered.
Fair, that's fair. James, what was your reaction to REverse back into Deer?
Oh man, it was very lukewarm because I wasn't interested. It just looking at it immediately, it didn't look that interesting to me. I'm not really I didn't know what they were doing. I think that was like the biggest thing that kind of took me about it. Like I couldn't explain this game back when it came out to somebody. I think that's quite important. I do like explaining and trying to sell games to people, I couldn't do that with Reverse because it just wasn't that interesting, for me. I also remember playing the beta, and I got into a couple of games, and I was like, oh, this is it. Okay, well, that's it really. And then I just booked it, and then we'll talk about it later on. But then the trailer came out for the most recent one, and I'll go into more of that later. But my opinion changed at that point.
Right. Okay. I was sort of on the other side of it, really. I was quite interested. It was a weird ride, certainly, because they showed the sort of main cover art, if you like, splash image as Resident Evil's 25th anniversary before they went, it's actually the image for a game, which was a little weird. And there was a lot of pushback. But sort of playing the beta and looking at it as a little taste of what's to come, it was kind of like, well, this could actually be interesting. As Steve, as you said, iconic characters and locations. Sure, the sort of PvP third-person shooter is a little bit it's kind of basic, but it did have its own little wrinkles to it that made it interesting for me, dying and coming back as a BOW and the revenge system. And yeah, playing the beta, I was actually pretty interested to see what it would become. And then obviously it didn't come at release, and since then sort of that excitement gets replaced with steadily more worries and lots of jokes about how it's never going to come out. And then we'll get to the actual final state of the game. Kelsey, you were also quite optimistic about REverse.
Yeah, I love the beta. I remember when they showed the very first trailer, and like most people, I thought, oh, this kind of looks like a mobile game and not very high quality. And what is this? This is confusing. But it was still kind of not clear what it was, like James said. But then when I played the beta, I remember there was maybe like a week of it or a few days or something. I played that beta more than I've played any beta for any game in my life. It was obvious at the time that it needed polish, and it was a beta, but I just remember it being addictive and me wanting to keep playing, and I think some of the other folks from the server were playing as well. And there was a lot of hatred from the community, but I just couldn't really get on board with it. I was like, hang on, no, this is fun, and I can see what they're kind of trying to do. It felt fresh, and I'll get onto more gameplay thoughts in a bit, but yeah, at the time, the beta, I was like, okay, yeah, it needs some work, and it's lacking in modes and content and stuff, but surely that will come in the future. And then, yeah, it was just a long wait for the launch. But I have positive memories of the beta. I was like, you know, championing the game since it, really.
And we tried to, in general, with our content, sort of, you know, shine a bit of a light on it, get a bit optimistic about it, and sort of fly the flag a little bit. Because what if it's really good? It would be cool for us to be able to cover that kind of thing. And obviously, somewhat famously, I guess, our Discord server had a really good time with Resistance. All of the issues with that game aside, it became a little bit of a gathering point for people to play online, even when it was not as good as other games in the genre, or, you know, when it got a little bit abandoned and a lack of updates. It was still somewhere for people to go, and it was kind of like, you know, REverse could be, you know, even if it's average, it's still a good place to go and hang out potentially. So we're going to get into whether or not we think that's the case. There's no story to get into, obviously, so we'll just dive right into gameplay. Touched on REverse being a competitive third-person shooter with its own few interesting mechanics, you know, being that you pick a classic Resident Evil character from about 6 or so at launch. And when you die, you'll come back as a BOW, and the BOW that you come back on depends on how many sort of virus capsules you pick up before your death. And also, there's the revenge mechanic, which makes it stand out a little bit in that you'll get more points for killing the player that previously killed you. I think that's pretty much what... They were the selling points, I think, other than, you know, recognisable characters and stuff like that. So let's look at positives, I think, before we get into really pulling it apart. James, what are the positives of REverse's finished release in your eyes?
Oh, why'd you have to start with me?
Because you're the happy one.
Oh, not this week. What are the positives about this game?
Right, it's like it's someone else.
I've got plenty of positives to say.
Yeah, Kels, you go ahead. And I'll
Okay, which it might spark some thoughts for you, James. Obviously, feel free to jump in and stuff. Because I'm glad you said that, Si, because you definitely need to split gameplay, I think, into the gameplay, which I think there's lots of fun stuff to say, and then issues with the gameplay, which is kind of I feel like is separate. Because I believe, no matter how I feel right now and how I feel at the end of this podcast, the core gameplay, without the issues that I'll get to, is great and fun. It's pick up and play, and I think that whole revenge system was just kind of brilliant for a selling point for that mode. It's easy to get, you know, you collect the vials, and the more you get, you become a better BOW. It feels almost like a child could play the game. It's so easy to pick up and play. It's this classic... It's like a classic arena shooter, like closer to something like Halo, you know, with that sort of pace, not something like COD and Fortnite, these modern shooters that you get today. And I mentioned it before, you know, it has a scoring system which is like Mario Kart. You can be in last place and 30 seconds later you're in the top 3. I wish there was more gameplay modes to talk about, but there's not, because that core gameplay, the gameplay loop of the revenge match, the revenge death match, I maintain is really, really good. And I'm not going to get into issues now. I want to give other people another chance, because I do have issues and I'm going to probably rant. But
yeah, we'll get
it's
there.
Just, yeah, it's something that I just want to underline kind of anything I say forward with that potential could have been expanded on, because I think at the root of this game, it was something that I hadn't seen in a shooter for a long time. You know, like Steve said, I play other shooters, can be quite good at them. I know other people know I'm a big fan of Gears of War, and I do play Halo. I've been playing Halo Infinite again very regularly, which is also still a really good game. And this just feels more like a bit of a classic arena shooter. And I was like, hang on, I could see myself playing this loads and loads and loads with a bit of polish and tuning, which I didn't really get. But yeah, so just to wrap that point up, I think core gameplay, there are positives in there.
I wanted to get into, say, those concepts, because I think the concepts are good. I agree. The virus capsules, there's some issues with them, certainly, and it is really basic, but it is nice to have something to sort of monitor as you play, instead of just spawn, shoot as many dudes as possible, die. Yes, of course, that's a big part of it, but also it's moving around the environment. You're sort of... I don't know, you need to move around the environment. You can't necessarily... I guess you could spawn camp, but you're better off moving around, pick up the virus capsules, because you'll come back as a BOW, because that's an important aspect, and you'll probably get a lot more kills as a monster, potentially, than as a sort of hero character. In terms of the game feel, I agree to somewhat. What I've got in my notes is sort of the chaos of it. Reminds me of something like Unreal Tournament, rather than... Halo, but I certainly see where you're coming from. And you're right, it's not like precision or Twitch shooter stuff. It feels kind of old school in that way to me as well. But yes, issues is next, certainly. Steve, what do you think of the core concepts? What do you think about, what are the positives of RE-verse?
I had to sit down and really think about this, and I've basically got two main underlined positives for this. I'm not even sure if they could be considered positives overall. The first is that most of the maps aren't symmetrical, which in a modern day and age game, that is surprising. That's the beauty of this being a free-for-all focused thing, really. But there has come a point where now playing most first-person shooter maps, there are in some way or another symmetrical, and it gets irritating. Whereas, don't get me wrong, there's not much variety to them, especially with the RPD and Baker House. But there's enough unique identity to them to make them a bit more than just the same half of a map twice. Yeah. And the village map obviously is a bit more interesting in that regard. And the other thing is, playing as a BOW, besides Fat Molded, is actually reasonably fun. I think they got that part of the gameplay loop okay. How to get there and how overpowered or busted some of them are, that's a different story. But playing as a BOW in and of itself is alright. Unless you're a Fat Molded, which unfortunately is the one you're most likely to be if you can't find the virus capsules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the other thing I guess I didn't mention is, it's not just skins. Everybody has, both human and BOW characters have their own abilities and stuff that they do. So all the hero characters have a couple of different things. Jill's got the hot dogger, Leon can dual wield, Chris has the super, punch thing from RE7's DLC and all that kind of stuff. So it's fun because characters have a little bit of, character to them. And yeah, playing as BOWs is great because, Tyrant has running around dragging your claw on the floor trying to impale people. And Jack Baker has welcome to the family, son. Whereas if you get hit in the face with his punch, it goes into first person mode if you're the unfortunate victim. Nice little touch. Yep. Like fun stuff like that is fun, certainly. James, have you got scrounged up any positives?
I have two.
Okay, cool.
I've always said since the beta, I've always said that I enjoyed the match speed. I actually said prior to this game coming out that I would really like a fast-paced online game of some kind, something that someone could get a couple matches in during a break at work or something. I like that. As someone who has played almost exclusively for my entire life, games where you're in the game for about 45 minutes and you're kind of trapped in there. You can't come out for risk of getting punished. Such as League of Legends or War Rock or some other game, that has a huge map. PUBG, for instance. Yeah. They're all very long games. So it was nice to have a quick game that you could just drop into. I'm not going to say anymore. Then there's the accessibility of the crossplay.
Yes.
Now, when I heard crossplay, it can either be a disaster, and this game had half a disaster happen with crossplay, but to set up crossplay and sort it all out, you got a couple of options. You can either add each other on the Capcom ID site, or you can just, you can just enter somebody else's game and add as a friend. And I thought that in terms of accessibility and in terms of crossplay, so I'm gonna compare it to Aliens Fireteam a second, which its crossplay features are cool, but they're not super accessible. It tends to work like quite well on PC. In terms of adding people, you have to basically give the other person a code, and then they add you, and then you're friends forever, and you can go into games whenever you want. Which is what this game should have had, but it didn't. You said earlier on you're the happy one, and you don't realize how much it's taking me to bite my tongue not to go further into why these also had problems. But we'll go into that.
That is certainly right up next. But I will echo that sentiment. I think that having crossplay in this game was kind of the pie in the sky dream that we all had. Mm-hmm. Like, that seemed highly unlikely in a way because, again, using it as an example, Resistance never got it. And it is an offshoot of a franchise. It was just kind of like this little extra piece developed by another group. So it was kind of like, I highly doubted personally that it was ever going to happen. So when they revealed that, it was like a beam of light, like, oh my god, this game might actually be something. Not only is it actually alive after all these months of us not knowing what was going on with it, it has crossplay. It almost seems like they might be taking this seriously. And I agree, it's really easy to set up crossplay. We've not had any issues, unlike other games where we've tried to play together, which sometimes has been a bit difficult. I found RE playing with people was really easy.
That makes me very low-key furious, as we're going to probably come down to the actual core gameplay of this. If they'd had crossplay, for example, available for Resistance, another RE Engine game, I imagine that would have had a lot more legs than even this currently has.
Oh, totally.
Not to go completely cart before the horse, but the fact that yes, that they got crossplay, but I'd argue it was on the wrong title of the two.
Mm. Yes, I would agree with that. Because the sort of important caveat, now we really start to rip the band-aid off here. Crossplay's really cool. There's nothing in the game to play, though. It's like, cool, I've got crossplay for 2 bits of bread with butter on. Where's the rest of it? It's nothing here. So I don't quite understand that decision at all. And James, before we started recording, hit us with the stats. You just looked at the Steam sort of stats for REverse at the moment, and it's a shambles.
I'm going to refresh this page. It's not going to take long. It hasn't changed. There are only 38 people that are playing this game on Steam at the moment. That's on Steam. So I don't know what the numbers are like on console.
Other platforms are available.
It's not even been 6 weeks, by the way.
Yeah, to put this in comparison, right? Again, I'm going to mention Aliens Fireteam because that's the only other game that's kind of team-based that has crossplay and has successfully done it. So Aliens Fireteam had a just over 10,000 concurrent player score in its first month, and it was consistent during that first month. It would go from 8 to 10, 8 to 10, 8 to 10. And now we've gone all the way back down because kind of content's dried out. We've gone down to about 400, 500 people. But they implemented crossplay recently. Before crossplay, we had 150, 200 people playing on Steam. Only Steam, that is, guys. Right, so there's way more on console. I just think, man, it's such a... I'm not going to swear. It's disappointing.
Yeah.
So disappointing. And Steve hit the nail on the head earlier on. I wasn't too interested in Resistance because it took me ages to find maps, and when I got into a game, it was just a mess of a game. Whenever I played, it was always a mess. I mean, granted, I did play at the beginning. Imagine if it had crossplay. We could have played with so many people. Right, but this game is half-assed crossplay. It's you can't play with your friends, really. You can go into...
I'll tell you what it is. They'll have been doing crossplay research for Street Fighter 6, and they figured out how to do it with the RE engine pretty easily or something, and they could just tack it on.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah,
and
because it's really strange. To that point, James, you can crossplay in this game, but you can't go into matchmaking with friends,
Yeah.
which is the most like obvious multiplayer thing. And that was, a thing in Resistance.
There is a
But
caveat.
you can't do an RE-verse.
There is a
If you play
caveat to
with
that. Just
friends-
say it's only because it's a deathmatch mode. If there was a team mode and it was still the same, then it would be an issue. So the reason, obviously, you can't cross-play and set up a squad and go into a deathmatch is because people will cheat. You will squad up, you will not kill each other, and you'll just kill everybody else. So that's I understand that. It's still terrible crossplay because there's no other modes, so you can't crossplay.
Yeah, well,
So
right,
it's
exactly
pointless.
that. Then
But yeah,
that's the
it
real
makes
issue,
sense
isn't it? Yeah.
that you can't crossplay in a deathmatch mode. You
It's-
can't do that in any game, as far as I'm aware.
It's the biggest thing for me is that I know crossplay is not cheap. Like it's not a cheap thing to implement,
No, yeah.
right? But Capcom have implemented this, and you literally can't do anything with it. Like it's
Yep.
a pointless feature. You just need it, as you said, Kells. Like I understand the whole cheating thing. I don't think it would be as rife as you think, but I do think that if they ever did it, but they're not gonna now. But if they ever did or ever thought about it, having a duos, having a flex mode, having a team mode, right, would have
that'd
been
be
perfect.
Yep.
Yep, that's the real problem, isn't it? Is you can't matchmake with friends because, and I totally see what you're saying, because of reasons like that. It can't be that much work to be like, okay, well in that case, there's a red team, a blue team, and a
Yeah.
green team, go nuts or whatever. It's like that seems like I'm not a designer or a developer, so I don't know. But that seems like less work than actually implementing crossplay to me. But there you go. This game is one mode amongst all the other issues that we're going to have with content. The fact that this is just six person free for all, non-friends matchmaking is just mind-boggling, to be quite honest.
In the past hour, less people played this game than we have episodes in First Aid Spray.
Yes, exactly. Steve, what are the most sort of prevailing, frustrating, disappointing issues with RE-verse for you, sort of in terms of the gameplay?
In terms of gameplay, shall we just get the big elephant in the room and stun lock it to death? Like, I appreciate that they've got all these fancy schmancy animations, and you can even dive roll in this game to avoid damage theoretically. But if you're stun locked in any way, shape, or form in the middle of a firefight, you're dead. And the fact that that's a guaranteed death frustrates me. It's not even something cool like you've been sniped from the other side of a map by like Ada powered up with a crossbow. No, you've just been knocked over by a gamma one too many times and you can't get back up until you're pummeled to death.
Yeah.
And it's never a satisfying experience, like to just basically be corralled into a corner and smashed while you can't do anything. It's I don't know how to describe it other than just frustrating. An exercise in being kicked while you're down and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
The human players I find are quite fragile, which obviously helps the sort of like speedy nature of the game. You die quickly, you respawn quickly. But yeah, you get knocked down, you're down. It takes a couple more hits, that's it, it's over. It really does not take much to take you out. So the fact that there is stun lock pretty much means the first hit you take, if it's from, say, a Hunter Gamma, the stun locking champion of the world, you're boned immediately if you get caught in that tail swipe. It's all over. So yeah, that is a huge issue, which I unfortunately would doubt that is going to get fixed, to be quite honest.
It's intrinsical to the actual game, and as a result,
Yes.
really drags it down for me. Like, I know for a fact that if I'm playing as a Gamma, like you said, and I can get into a huddle where some people are fighting and sneak in from behind, I get one hit in, I'm guaranteed pretty much at least someone's dead. That isn't me. And that feels broken. That feels unfair that you can get one hit touch of death. And it's not even like a fast death, it's a slow crawl.
Yeah. That is, there's that for me, and the other sort of thing in the craw is the kill stealing. Is not a thing. There's no assist points for working people's players' health down. As you say, it takes a couple shots to take them down. If somebody gets that last shot in, then, well, you're boned, I guess. And with the point scores sort of like, with the game being short and the points sort of being a bit chaotic, it actually works out to its negative. I thought that was going to be a fun part of it, but it's kind of not, because, yeah, so many times you just get screwed over. I haven't played this game much at all, to be quite honest. But I don't feel like if I played it for a long time, I would know if I was improving or not. Because nonsense like stun lock and kill stealing, it makes the chaos not fun. I don't feel like I'm actually achieving anything. I don't know if that's just me.
No, you're fair in saying that. You're fair in saying, because the game has no, it doesn't reward you in any way. The entire game.
If you don't get the kill, you are literally just meat. You're cannon fodder.
Even if you win a game, you don't get anything. Like, you know, I played this game for 4 hours. I got 11 out of 12 achievements. And it's not because I'm good at video gaming.
Yeah.
Right? It's because I wanted to give the game a good shake, and I did for 4 hours. The only achievement I didn't get was like the silly one where you have to be first with every character or something like that. There's so much this, I say it a lot, but the potential of this game was there. Like, I can see as I was playing this game, I can see where they were going on the whiteboard. You know, it's like, okay, we've got this really cool idea. It's a revenge system. People love revenge system right now. You know, Shadow of Mordor, you know, etc. Like, we're going to put it into a multiplayer game. It's going to be cool. How about we put an RNG aspect to the monsters? Yeah, that sounds great. No, it was not a good idea. Right?
Not to mention the RNG of where you spawn, you know, oh, look, I'm next to some virus capsules. Good for me.
Right.
Or not.
Yeah. How about, like, we create a situation where all the monsters do is become a monster ball. So you're in one room, right? And it's just a bunch of monsters hitting each other. That's it. It's complete RNG who wins that, by the way. Like, there is no skill to that. Like, you'll see it all the time. You go into a match, you just see, like, 3 or 4 monsters just wailing on each other. I don't know who's going to win. Like, it's all Mike Tyson punching each other. Like, I've literally exploded as a fat molded and taken out like a tyrant. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Like, it wasn't because of skill. Nothing meshes, but it has the potential there. But nothing sticks.
Kelsey, gameplay negatives.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to come at this from a different angle. There are, aside from the general polish, no assist points you've mentioned, that's a big issue. Stun locks is a big issue. Balancing is a big issue. Like, some characters, you know, humans and BOWs are just completely overpowered, so balancing is an issue. I agree with everything that's been said. All that being said, weirdly, these issues don't stop you from winning, kind of like James has said. So the score system is so weirdly varied that even when you're getting stun locked, you can still end up finishing in first place. Now, I've played this game a lot. I've played it for nearly 30 hours, and I've been thinking about the stun lock in particular. And I feel like this game could have almost been fixed if they just amped up the arcade feel of it, because what they've done with the stun lock, I don't want to say realism, but, you know, this getting knocked over that you mentioned, Si, lose that. That shouldn't ever happen unless it's like a special weapon like a shot grenade or a flash grenade. All it should just be is a battle of HP depletion. And the problem is you get whipped and tripped over and there's no chance of recovery, like you said. So the battle is lost. There's no battling your opponent. It's who gets there first kind of thing. However, you die, and then you get to chase them as a BOW. So you sort of get this second chance, which for me is the reason why I guess I've played it for so many hours, because you sort of, if you learn to play to the game's quirks, it's really playable despite how broken it is. And stun locks shouldn't be in it. The characters are unbalanced. The fat molded probably shouldn't be able to stun lock a tyrant or Jack. You know, like James said, you shouldn't be able to kill a tyrant with a fat molded. So the balancing is all over the place. And I was trying to figure out, why has this game hooked me? Why is it so addictive? And I think it's because if you realise that you don't have to get stressed and angry when you get stun locked, because there's actually a very good chance you can get up and kill the person that killed you, then it's kind of fun. And this game exists in this weird place where it's so broken, but it's not broken to the point where it's unplayable, because I've played it for many hours. So I don't know what to think, and I'm very angry at the game. I'm angry at this game for some other stuff, which we'll talk about a bit more, rather than the gameplay. As annoying as some of those gameplay issues are, the lack of modes.
Let me just throw a hypothetical.
Yeah, sure.
Kels, right? You've just spawned, right? You've just had a full round of being a human, being a BOW. And now you see the same person again as a human. They one-shot you before you get a vial, and you're a molded again. Like, going through the cycle of becoming a fat molded human, fat molded human, fat molded human, it decks your morale. Like, if you can't get any vials, you're gonna have a poor time.
No, I completely get it, and I think we've mentioned the spawning places and stuff, and whereas this something like Call of Duty is spawn, go for the kill, spawn, go for the kill. Here, when you play this game, or when I play this game, it's spawn, just focus on the vials. Let's just find 2 vials, roll out the way, and ignore the other players. So there is a method to it. Unfortunately, the game is unbalanced in other ways that makes it difficult to kind of play it properly. Before I tear it apart even more, I just wanted to say that sort of nugget of gameplay is a gold nugget to me, because I kept playing it, and it's a shame because all of that kind of goes out the window with the lack of modes and maps and characters.
Yes,
which
that is.
Hmm.
I guess we're going to move on to.
The gameplay, I completely disagree. The gameplay of this game is bad. I played it on keyboard and mouse, and it might be different on controller. I don't know.
I've heard it's terrible on keyboard and mouse. Actually, yeah, I've heard.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I've heard a lot of.
It's
PC
like
guys
trying to move a bus, like with my WASD key, and it's a shooter. Like,
Yeah.
That's and people will decry and they'll say, oh, typical PC game. No, man, it should be the same for everybody. Everybody should be getting the same movement. It should be seamless for everybody, right? And I maybe they did that deliberately to try and add some more, to add some balance, but it doesn't. It makes it not fun. And
No,
that's
I think
why
this
there's
is
only 38 people playing.
Yeah, I think this is
on
the first
Steam.
game where a shooter where the console players have an advantage over PC because of that reason James is saying.
Yeah, like I could just be running, right? This happened in so many different occasions. I could just be running and I'll hit like a corner or something. Suddenly my character does a little hiccup and I have to turn around. Then I have a tyrant in my face. I get punched, I'm dead, right? Because my character gets hooked up on stuff that I'm trying to turn around. He goes a little bit too far, Yeah, so there's the movement is really bad. We've already spoken about it, but the staggering is awful. I love playing with everybody in fast, but I'm sure you guys could tell that I just wasn't having fun playing this game with friends. I was just meat on a hook. Like I was just existing in this game while you folks were trying to have fun. Where I mean, in Kelsey's turn, you were having fun, but like I just can't see the fun in this game, and I'll get more into it later because I want to talk about because I think out of all of us, I have the most esports kind of experience. I've been in my own semi-professional esports team. We've won tournaments, and I want to talk about that a little bit later. Because this game, even though it tries to not take itself seriously, it also does take itself seriously.
Interesting. What a tease.
James is now rebranding as FaZe Redfield.
I'm not good at video games. I think I'm a good strategist, right? And like this game tries to do that. But because of the RNG aspects of it, and again, me saying like the thing's not sticking earlier on, right? It can't have that competitiveness. It can't, which I think is why I would have respected them more if the crossplay, right, was actually a free-for-all crossplay, because then it would have been like, oh, this is just a joke game, and I'm completely down with just rolling some heads like in matchmake. Like but they didn't. They're trying to take it seriously by adding certain things, which I'll go into later on in conclusion and before that.
And now, reading the file Research Assistant's Logs from Resident Evil 3 2020, Daniel G. Holmes, who you can find on Casting Call Club at Cast Your Lines.
March 4th. Water temp, 18 degrees Celsius. pH 6.8. Gamma is released from tank for the first time. Movement sluggish. Combat potential low. April 18th. Water temp 20 degrees Celsius. pH 6.8. Experimented with additional hormones and drugs. One adjustment bore positive results with a significant rise in combat potential. Specimen is now able to move quickly and swallow prey whole. June 30th. Water temp 22 degrees Celsius. pH 6.2. Umbrella has officially shut down gamma research. We managed to smuggle some specimens with especially high potential from the lab before disposal. Dr. Logan Carlisle is more committed than ever to perfecting the gamma line. August 14th. Water temp 25 degrees Celsius. pH 5.8. 2 weeks since relocating to the sewers. Increased temperatures have led to a decrease in water quality, but specimens appear fine despite my concerns. Gamma's quickly learned the layout of the sewers, and within 2 days were exploring the entire underground of Raccoon City. All specimens are familiar with and friendly towards us, but I have procured high-powered weaponry as a safeguard in the event that they become uncontrollable. September 1st. Water temp 23 degrees Celsius. pH 6.1. We were lucky to secure this space by bribing the sewage department chief, but it's beginning to feel cramped due to the gamma's continued growth. We should begin to consider other possible arrangements. September 9. Water temp 21 degrees Celsius. pH 6.1. A water treatment worker found his way into the lab, but the gammas promptly eliminated him. This proves their viability for field use. I'll reach out to Umbrella's European branch tomorrow. Perhaps they will see the light.
Well, Kelsey, I think you're alluding to what is my biggest issue with this game, and what has immediately soured my mood when it came out, which has basically just got worse and worse about it, to be quite honest, which is the complete lack of, well, anything in this entire game. Content is even too strong of a word, in fact. As we said, there is one game mode, but that's, I think maps being the best place to start really says it all. The game launches with 2 maps. That's one more map than was in the beta a year and a half ago. Now, obviously, we don't know for how long the team was working on this game during that year and a half. We know Neobards is off to work on a Silent Hill game next. Congratulations to them. Who knows when or what was being made with this game when it got finished off, and if Capcom had just been holding on to it. We don't know. It doesn't matter, though. To me, that is unforgivable that this launches with 2 maps, and we see the next map available in the update, sort of in the trailer. We were like, oh, there's the village. Okay, that's your first update map. And we've got a roadmap of the first few updates of the game, and there's no more maps on there now. So there's 3 maps in the game, and that is probably the way that it's going to stay. So I'm going to make a bet. We all talked about how the Spencer Mansion is the bare minimum this game should have. If the Spencer Mansion actually comes to our Reverse, I don't know, I'll do a 12-hour Resident Evil marathon stream or something. Because I categorically believe that is not happening. This is probably it, your 3 maps. And if you get anything else, it's RE Engine crap. Like, you're not going to get any fun throwback stuff. You're not going to get Spencer Mansion. I'm heated already. We haven't even got to the good stuff yet. This is... What a huge disappointment. Steve, I agree with you in the terms of the maps are actually kind of nice and kind of fun. But I can't sit by and say, yeah, this is the correct amount of maps. Definitely. It should have launched with the one from the beta and one other. Steve, how do you feel about the maps themselves and the lack thereof?
The veritable paletted, like, what's the word? Feast that RE-verse came with to launch.
Yeah.
It's dire. It's unbelievably dire. Like, you know, Versus mode in RE5 was an optional DLC add-on. Versus mode in RE6 was an optional DLC add-on, and they had more modes, more maps, more characters. You know, this is 1 mode, 6 characters, 2 maps. This is, you know, they market it as a celebratory game, It's not. It's a mode that was going to be attached to Village and they've removed, so it's not going to damage its meta score. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, probably.
That's probably a little bit tinfoil hatty, but if they had such little confidence in this product in the first place, they really should have gone back to the drawing board. And whoever okayed this as a acceptable launch thing for this game at launch needs a head checking. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Not to get too incensed, but there is looking at a minefield, or it's like, no, what's the word? Yeah, Titanic of the iceberg. The captain can see the iceberg and is going straight for it anyway. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, it's a shame because the maps that we do have are actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, I really like what they did with the RPD and the way they've sort of torn certain parts up, and so you can see through certain walls, and there's new doorways and stuff to move around. That's really cool. We knew that was solid from the beginning. I really like the Baker House in that sort of like googly-eyed RE fan, I'll look at it kind of way, because it's nice to see it with some light on it from a new perspective. It's got a really fun energy to it. You talked about sort of asymmetrical, and it's somewhere in between, isn't it? Because you've got like the old house and the actual Baker House on either end of the sort of garden area. Yeah, I think that's...
Yeah, but the insides are different.
Yeah, exactly, but they are different. I think it's a really solid map. It's like, where's the rest of them, you know?
Yeah, it frustrates me because Umbrella Corps had a better showing.
Oh, God.
In terms of... Yeah, exactly, right? But it had a better showing in terms of like classic maps repurposed into competitive shooter maps. Yeah. Hell, Dead by Daylight. Like, the RPD there is fantastic. So much so that the fan base get really, really upset about it. But hey, it's something. This is just RE Engine stuff, which is fine. Celebrate recent victories, but this is meant to be a celebration of everything.
Kelsey, maps, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm basically in agreement. It's as with almost every aspect of this game, all of it is like, oh, that's potentially quite good, but what a massive missed opportunity. And yeah, what's there is good. There's just not enough of them. The maps, they're really nicely designed, beautiful to look at. They do a very good job of feeling like you're running around that location instead of like, a huge battlefield that you can get lost on, which, to be honest, I sometimes with DBD, I feel like that a lot. I get very lost in DBD.
You're not alone.
Yeah. I thought the village map here in REverse is really bold. It's like, it's kind of elevated up on this hill. Everything's really narrow. And again, that was cool and fresh. But the fact that, the game launched with 2 maps and one was from the beta it's just embarrassing. What were they doing for a year and a half? We thought, okay, they might be tweaking this and tweaking that, and we're going to get loads of cool stuff. We had a wish list about all the stuff we wanted, same with characters and BOWs. And to just get served this is really frustrating because I don't know because what's there is quite good, I think, well, yeah, and this was a inverted commas free game. They thought, we're not going to spend too much more time designing loads of maps. They just get this and they'll be happy with it. Maybe there's a bit of that going on and that's why we haven't got anything else, but it's just a shame because it's like I'm being teased saying, you've mentioned Spencer Mansion, think of all the locations in this 25th anniversary Resident Evil game we could have got as maps, and are we really stuck with these 3? Is that it? Disappointing.
It certainly seems like it, doesn't it? James, anything to add in terms of maps?
Yeah, I do say. It's a surprise. I disagree that the maps look good. They don't. Like, how I'm going to call back to the beginning, talking about merchandise, where somebody was just picking up assets and plunking them down to see if they fit. That's how I felt like going around a reverse map. I felt like somebody had like the basis of a wireframe like of these maps and just moved things around and plugged them together and then just smoothed out the edges. That's what it looked like to me. Yeah.
That's fair. I know like, that the sort of design and visual aspect of this game in general is quite divisive.
Yeah, it doesn't, like, even though it's a bunch of reused assets, do you know what it feels like, actually? It feels like a stock room of Unreal, like Unreal Engine. Right? It feels like somebody has just taken the RE engine and has just plopped a bunch of stuff down and said, see, look, it's populated, it's full of elements. There's no point Yellow Gem Ecto in chat has just put like They dislike it when a game doesn't allow you to stop and look at things. Now, this game is not meant to do that.
No.
Because it's a Twitch shooter. But when they add things everywhere, the game is trying to get you to do that. It's trying to get you to look at all these things. It's too busy. Like, when I'm over the one side of the map, I'm on my own. Like, where the heck is everybody? In fact, that is probably one of the most said terms I've heard. Like, when I've watched people play this game and when I played it. Like, where is everyone? Everyone is over in the other house monster balling right now. Like, that's what they're doing. I can't see them. Like, because there's so much stuff in the way. Like, I just can't see it. And I like the elevations, but again, the elevations can work against you because I can't see anything. Like, I understand kind of. I'm like shaking because this game like had so much potential, and I was so excited about this game. Like when they released that trailer, and I wanted it to be good, right? But it's every time I think back to it, I go, I just didn't have a good time playing that game. The maps are just they're too busy, and they look too ad hoc, and just like everything else in this game, unfortunately. It wasn't polished, and they had 1.5 years extra time to do that. Yeah, that's my maps anyway.
Do you have a not favorite map, James?
Do I have a favorite map? I have a least favorite map, which is the RE7 one. It's so full of stuff.
Right. That's fair.
I think the RPD is probably, if I was going to choose a favorite, it is my favorite because I can see more in the RPD.
Better sightlines.
Yeah, there was also there was a lot of sound problems while I was playing. You know, I'd hear some loud footprints coming from my left or right, and I'd look around and not see anybody, right? And it would be because they'd be on top of me. They'll be upstairs. You know? Again, that's the kind of polish I'm talking about. So when you create a Twitch shooter like they were trying to do but not do, right, you need those sounds. Like, if you're going to add them, you might as well, like, do it properly. But, yeah, again, this game didn't have that, so.
Yeah. Well, that makes us arrive at characters, which somewhat of a similar situation, I think. I mean, 6 characters to start with. You know, you've got Chris, Claire, Leon, Jill, Hunk, and Ada, as sort of the core game characters. Chris having his Redfield face swapped out for the Village Chris, which is, you know, something that we talked about and is nice to see, certainly. And Redfield isn't totally removed, he's skin, so that's kind of neat, I suppose. And as I sort of touched on, they've all got their own different abilities, plenty of which I think are actually kind of new. Like Claire, for example, has the sort of electrosphere stunning thing, which doesn't really come from anywhere, but in terms of making each character interesting to play as, there's a lot of stuff. You know, you're not just playing as generic man every time. They've all got something different to them. Like Ada is one example of a character who's very vastly different to the others, and I find her particularly challenging to play as. I feel like, you know, it's obvious to say it. It's quite poorly balanced. We already know that. We talked about that with BOWs. The day the game came out, 75% of matches were all Chris, you know, and I think maybe it's gotten better. I don't know because I haven't really played in matchmaking for a long time. But arguably the gameplay is punchy enough and quick enough that I don't think it matters too much in terms of the human balancing. I think the BOWs are a bit too broken, but in terms of human characters, it doesn't bother me too much. I reckon if there was a tier list, Claire would be quite down near to the bottom, to be honest. Yeah. But I just, you know, for the 4 minutes that I'm playing as her, I'm having a decent enough time if I switch my brain off and it's going okay. Kelsey, how do you feel about the characters? You know, let's talk about the base game ones first, I guess, and the balance.
Sure. Yes, the balancing issues, which we've kind of covered. Chris is like the most overpowered one in the game. He still is. Right. And kind of linking back to the gameplay things I touched on before, you can play around it. If you're not Chris, you can play with other characters. And what I do find is the people that were still playing the game when I was playing it, I think we're trying to tick off battle pass challenges, so you did see a nice variation in characters and matches, which was good. But it's depressing because the base characters we got despite a good level of thought and consideration going into making them varied and have their own unique features, it's just, yeah, it's just it's such a short offering. And those base characters, what I will say is, there's not hundreds of perks. I mentioned that before. Something like DBD and what's the other game? Back for Blood, which has hundreds of perks, and it keeps the loadout simple for each one. So you can just take a character and sort of train to use that character, or how to defend against another one, because there's less surprises. So you can kind of scan your bank of tactics while playing. So okay, there's Jill over there. She's going to use a mine. I've got to watch the floor. There's Claire. She's got a shock grenade, so I better keep my distance a little bit. Chris can't be knocked down, so maybe back off. Rather than a lot of other shooters where it might be like, oh, it's Hunk. I have no idea what weapon and perk he's wielding, so it's just a skin of a character, and I have no idea how to deal with this, and it's sort of more of a game of luck. There is an element of actually, James has sort of said that there's no skill in this game, but I think the limited nature of the characters means you can train yourself to play this game, and you can bank some tactics to deal with them. You can, I suppose, there are things like the HP regen and stuff with the coins that you can use, which does add a bit of, I guess, surprise, but that's nothing like the perks of DBD. So although I'm pissed off at the lack of characters and who came in the updates, the game does win points for the pick up and play nature and the considered sort of, the locked nature of each character. It almost feels, you've said like an old school game, Si. It feels like, these old games back in the day where you pick your fighter and you know what you're getting. It's not like, I pick so-and-so and they can do anything. You know what you're getting with the characters. So there is a positive in there, but it's just not positive because there's not very many and some rubbish ones have come along.
Yeah, I think we talked about in the wishlist episode, I was talking about how I don't want loot boxy stuff and I want cosmetics only and I don't care about any perk stuff or anything like that. I just would like a baseline of how the game should be. And you can spend like your RP stuff on, I don't even know what you'd call them, but little stat upgrades and things like that. I haven't spent any of my RP on that. I don't feel like it's necessary to do that. No. Sure, I've had a mixed time with the game, but I've not consistently felt like everyone's better than me because they've got all the right abilities set up and there was all these perfect builds or whatever. So I'm kind of thankful that I can spend my RP on costumes and crap that I care about and not have to worry about having to build the perfect character and stuff like that. So I'll give it that much. And again, I think that is down to the punchiness and stuff like that. But there you go. James, thoughts on characters?
Oh man, they're incredibly boring to play. I play Claire a lot. And the actions, and this goes for all the other characters too. The actions between the characters are very slow. So by the time I put my stuff down, because the game can be fast paced, if someone's at full tilt towards you and you want to spark shot them, they've already moved out of the way. If somebody's at full tilt again at you and you put down like electric thing, I think the only thing that works very well in this game is Jill's mines. Like Jill's mines are pretty good. Once you kind of get used to them. Chris's punch, what is that? It's a wet noodle. Like it can knock you out. But like it's so, again, I think someone said in chat earlier on about the RNG of HP. Like sometimes I can full punch somebody in the forehead and they don't down, and then other times I full punch somebody I think I didn't hit and I've killed them with Chris's punch. And that might be down to latency, but again, this is a development problem which should have been figured out in a year and a half after development. if I could choose a favorite, I would say I think I played Hunk more. I liked that he had a stealth mode, though it didn't really come into play much.
It's mostly just there because it for me it boosts the damage of the little knife thing he does. So like its secondary usage is actually primary usage.
Yeah, I think I think I think that was one of only a few times where I had fun. If I'm chasing somebody, I just go invisible and then stab them, and then that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But that wore off very quickly. I really want to not be like a big grumpy gills, but like there wasn't.
It's okay, James.
Nothing.
I can be a hater.
Nothing inspired me. Like I didn't feel. I went into this with these characters, and I didn't feel inspired to do builds. I didn't feel inspired to try and do any kind of meta stuff. Even though the meta is just Chris Redfield, and hope that you get like the Gamma, Hunter Gamma, or you get Nemesis, but we'll go on BOWs later. I mean, uninspired characters for me.
Steve, gonna be a hater.
Yeah, I say that. Like, I think the frustrating thing for me about the characters is that some of them have clearly had more thought put into them than others. Like, Leon has literally got his 2 guns from RE6 and his roundhouse kick to the head from RE4.
Yeah.
Nice. Very on point.
Which hardly ever hits, by the way, that roundhouse.
You can increase the range with those magic coins I was on about.
Who does that?
I know, because I had to for a Battle Pass thing I was doing when I was getting the achievements. What was I going to say? Right. So, and then you've got Claire on the other side who, notorious self-injector of adrenaline and lobber of Tesla balls, Claire. And then you've got Ada with I don't know what the proper term for it is, like a flip kick that she would do in RE4, which I think is like meant to refer to when she first meets Leon in 4.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the exploding crossbow bolt thing, which is like an RE6 style move. Which is, alright, that's on point. And then you've got on the other side of the docket, you've got Hunk, who's got like his references to raid mode stuff. That's neat. Jill and Chris are literally just generic stuff to slop together. Like, if you'd have told me Chris's moveset was meant for Joe Baker, I'd have believed you.
Yeah.
Jill's is just literally an assault rifle lady with the hot dogger, which I suppose is technically a Jill thing now because of resistance. She's got the mine, which I suppose is like the briefest squint towards a EOD backstory, and that's it. Like it's pants. Generally speaking, the one that I want to play as the most is whoever's got the most assault rifle bullets for the most damage. It generally boils down to be Chris, because most characters have some kind of fully automatic weapon. But if I had to have any kind of inclination as a fun character to play, for me it's probably Claire. And that's because I like using her revolver, and then you can dive roll to instant reload. But that's a me thing. I like revolvers.
And again, like the revolver does kind of like a cool nod, but the instant reload thing, you're like, again, stacked on top of Claire's abilities, none of them really have anything to do with her.
Yeah. I mean, for one thing, her reloading of that handgun is awful in like any of the games she's got it in.
Master of reloading, Claire Redfield. That's what they call her.
No, if anyone's a fast reloader, it's Becca, whatever her name was from Resistance.
Oh, yeah.
Her surname.
Yeah. I don't know.
Park Ranger, apparently. I don't know. Dukes of Hazzard, something.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. In terms of the characters that are fun to play with, weirdly, I actually quite like the DLC ones in terms of like twists on the RE-verse formula. One is all about virus capsules and putting down sort of false ones, and the other one's got like this drone thing and an area of effect. So those are kind of neat. It's a shame they're attached to crap.
Generic super soldier person who's all about sabotage, and then generic super soldier person who's all about techie gear, riveting stuff.
Yes.
That could have been Quint What's-His-Face and the other one from Revelations.
Yeah.
But no, we've got Captain Gogglehead and another Captain Gogglehead.
Steve, it could have been so many. It could have been many characters.
That's the thing, isn't it? RE-verse could have been all these great things, but what can we port from the RE engine, and what can we asset flip?
Cool. Well, we've arrived then, haven't we, at the stinkiest part of the RE-verse stew, which is the DLC everyone, we talked about how the maps were like lacking, and we got one that's from Village, and it looks like that might well be it. Yes, the roadmap has more coming in like generic font with no stroke and no shadow.
Comic Sans.
Yeah, it might as well be. So who knows, how true that is or what that means. But we've had 2 update survivors. We've got one more coming in the next update. You can be damn well sure that, it's another Hound Wolf Squad member on top of Tundra and the other one. I've forgotten the name. There you go. There's no way they're not going to have all of them in now they've started. They're all going to be in it, which means that the next 3 characters that we get in updates, if you get that many, are all going to be Hound Wolf Squad members. Which is awful, because A, who cares about generic soldier characters from the end of RE Village who don't have any character work in that game? Whether you call that lazy or a lack of budgeting, this is the most bare minimum amount of effort ever, because they went, there you go, we've made them, pop them in. But
how many? Like, can I just interject? Sorry, how much money do you think Capcom make, like, in terms of video game sales? Like, it's upwards of millions, right?
Oh, absolutely, it must be.
Yeah. And then we look across the road to, I don't know the name, Behaviour, is it? With the Dead by Daylight guys?
Yeah.
And they've got Wesker, they've got Sheva, they've got Rebecca Chambers.
There you go, exactly. Just use their assets then. Or you've got assets from the RE Engine characters that people care about. Like, why do we have Tundra and I still don't remember their name when you could have... Where's Carlos? Like, it seems so obvious. People lose their minds to play as Marvin Branner for the first time. But no, you're going to get Umber Eyes next week or whoever the character is going to be. And K9's going to be the last one, because we're all looking forward to K9 because they're an established character now.
Can't wait.
They're literally the same. We were playing it like this week just to prepare for it and pointing out their character model. The difference between the 2 they've released so far is one of them wears skinny jeans and one of them wears cargo pants. That is literally it. It's unbelievable. This is how dare they say this is a celebration of Resident Evil if you're just going to drop it. Oh, you got a roadmap of DLC characters. Guess what? They're all the same fucking person. I cannot believe this is a thing. It's unreal. This is where I'm checked out now. I'm not interested. I will boot it up and play as a character once and go, cool, that's that, and then RE-verse goes back in the bin. Like,
I just want to notify everybody that one other person is playing this hour.
There you go. Somebody please take the ball from me.
Where are we? Where are we?
Characters, DLC.
Characters, DLC. It's trash. It should feel trash. We predicted it before you predicted it before it even happened. And then
that's the thing.
We were trying to be optimistic, James.
Yeah,
we were trying to be optimistic, and they just slapped us in the face with here's stuff from the RE Engine. Goodbye.
When the launch trailer came out and there was showed 4 of the Hound Wolf Squad, I was adamant. No, these are just going to be skins for the same character. They wouldn't put all of them in. It's just going to be one, and you're going to get a skin for each one. Nope, they're all individual characters, despite the fact they look exactly the same. Like, why?
It's really uninspired. And
my favourite one is the one with the goggles.
Well, you're in luck, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, it's a disappointment. I'm going to say that term multiple times during this podcast. A big disappointment. Like, you have that disaster of a launch, and then you decide to make it worse. It's like they're just shooting something while it's in the ground,
Yeah, it does feel that way, doesn't it?
It feels like this. I've never played a game that more adheres to the phrase "throw it at a wall and see what sticks." Like, it just.
I don't even think they're doing that, to be honest.
No, they're just throwing it at the wall now. Nothing sticks. They just keep throwing it at the wall.
Like, they're just like they had all these ideas, and it's it's like they put them all in a matchbox, right, and they've shaken them up and then opened it up, and everything. There's an explosion of whatever is reverse. It's
at least we might have got something good if they did that. I think they've just very specifically picked what was closest to them and least effort and thrown that at the wall. It's just ridiculous.
All the
really does.
Assets is really lazy.
That crossplay stuff, again, like, I just want to reiterate how much it makes me goddamn mad that Resistance doesn't get it and this does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because Resistance had at least something, it had a bit of heart. What was it for everyone's taste? No. but there was like lots of love, lots of nods to the lore. You know, you got maps that are unique, new maps to the RE engine. Shocker. You got friggin' Darkstalkers references. What have we got here? We've got the village, we've got the RPD, the bakehouse.
I'll tell you what, Steve, what you've got is that when we know all the DLC, I'm sure, almost for a fact, all of these updates are already done. They're just sitting waiting for them to upload them. They're not working on it
If there was a physical disc, they'd have been data mined to death.
Absolutely.
You know?
So you know it's already done anyway, so they can't course correct. And when all the DLC characters are out, which will inevitably be all of the Hound Wolf Squad, there will be 5 Hound Wolf Squad members, which is nearly as many characters that aren't Hound Wolf Squad members. Oh wait, Chris Redfield is a member of the Hound Wolf Squad, so you can play an entire 6-person match as a bunch of random pointless soldiers and their leader Chris, and that's half the characters in the game. Is this a Resident Evil game? Is this a Resident Evil game anymore?
Is there a deal with Toko Maru or whatever it is that makes the airsoft guns that they have to get Hound Wolf merchandise frigging everywhere? Is that what it is?
I don't know. Maybe these characters are going to be the leader of the... This is it. These are the new characters that are going to lead the franchise for 20 years. And we'll all grow to love them and look back at how this was sort of like...
Okay. Hang on. I'm going to say it, right? If they just gave us, because this is what we wanted more lore on the Hound Squad, right? If they gave us more lore on the
lore being that one of them likes drones.
On the Hound Squad, if they gave us more of that, then maybe I would have been slightly less scathing. I still would have been scathing, but like, you know, they've given it. They have just thrown these characters as
so
precisely, Steve.
One of the issues for me is we saw them all. We saw them in the trailer. You know, you mentioned, it's going to be skins. Not only did we see them all, we saw them all stood in a line together as if it was a team mode. Now that coupled with the roadmap we've got with all that text on, I think was all just incredibly misleading and out of order. You know, there's all this stuff listed on the roadmap, which it even says, it says challenge missions. That's bollocks. The challenge missions are just the challenges for the battle pass. And for me, it's borderline false advertising.
Kill 10 people as John Cena.
It's just like, okay, what's challenge mission? To me, that was like, is there new modes coming? Or what is that? No, it's just the challenges for the battle pass.
I have a theory, by the way. When did this game say it was going to come out?
May 2021, May the 7th or whatever.
May, okay, so May, June, July, August. Okay, 3 months later, Aliens Fireteam came out. I'm mentioning this again. No, listen to me. They had a great roadmap. Like, it was on their, it was on their site before the game came out, right? And it had a great roadmap. And the roadmap, you know what? I think this is probably why I was hyped. Like, there was like a subconscious thing in my mind that was going, Aliens Fireteam had a great roadmap and they released all these awesome things, you know, every season. So I think I might have seen it and gone, I think they might have seen the success of Aliens Fireteam when it came to the roadmap stuff. I thought, how about we just copy it, but then not put any of the effort in?
Yeah, that's absolutely
it. Looks like a draft
in general.
roadmap.
Yeah,
see, I was going to say it was more like Overwatch, but through the third-person lens and done with a shoestring budget and a shoestrings level of effort.
The roadmap thing gets people excited because they can see what's coming. You know, they can invest into it and be like, okay, I'm going to keep playing because this will come soon. And look, it says a new character. One of these says a new map. One of these says a new creature. But what could it? You know, then you think, what could it possibly be? It's Resident Evil's big anniversary game where they're celebrating Resident Evil, but it's not that. It's designed to make you go, this could be the Antarctic base from Code Veronica. This could be Brad Vickers. It's not though, is it? It's
they tried to that trailer. That trailer that they showed, I think what they tried to do is they tried to make everybody go, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? But in fact, it didn't matter what we came up with.
No,
it would have been worse. Like, and it has been worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I
should have said this in gameplay earlier on, but I'm going to go a little bit into kind of the competitive side of this game for a moment, because it's kind of connected to the battle pass and stuff and the roadmap. They clearly had an idea, and they might have stolen this idea from League of Legends, right? Or they've used something as a template because nothing here makes sense. But this game has ELO, and for those that don't know, ELO is basically what chess uses for people to become like grandmasters, etc., like at chess. Now, typically, ELO is used in single-player games, obviously chess, but it's also used in multiplayer games, right? And it's used in highly competitive games, right? And it always has been. Overwatch has its own kind of ELO, League of Legends, Dota, they all have this system that's in place, and they tried to just throw it in, and it made no sense. It doesn't make...
For the old people in the room, James, what does ELO stand for?
I don't know what it stands for, if I'm honest, right? But it's basically it's a score. So that score
It's
you
like the
got at the
ranking
end of a
system.
game,
Yeah.
if you and even if you won, sometimes it wouldn't do it because it depended who you were playing with, depended on if it would go up or go down.
Yeah.
So, just to interject, ELO, if that is how it's pronounced, doesn't stand for anything. It's named after its creator, Arpad Elo, a Hungarian-American physics professor. The ELO rating system is a method for calculating the relative skill levels of players in zero-sum games, such as chess. So there you go. Sorry,
Excellent.
do carry on.
Yeah. That's a cool little nugget. Thank you. Yeah. It's a score. It's to it's, as Saija said, it's to judge you on your skill, your overall skill, and a lot of people argue that their actual skill is not what they deserve to be, right? Deserve to be at. Specifically in team-based games, because this ELO system is specifically built around an individual skill. So when you add it to team-based games, it gets a bit skewed. And now companies and developers are trying to mess with it, give you like extra kind of graces depending on how well you've done in previous games and stuff. So they give you like little nuggets, but this game hasn't even tried. It's just like it's measured everybody's ELO, and if you win or lose, and if you're with a low ELO team and you win, you'll get hardly any points.
Yeah.
If you're with a high ELO team, right, and you lose, you will actually gain points. Like it's a bit weird. Like and they've put it in, and as soon as I saw that little thing, I said, "Oh, sweet! They're going to make it competitive, and it's going to be quite serious." And I'm actually kind of interested in that. And then I noticed that it had no meta at all. Like then there was no way to make a meta. I've said this before, but like Resident Evil Resistance, I always measure a multiplayer game success on the amount of builds people do. You go on YouTube, you look at Resident Evil Resistance, you see people have done full playlists for months and months and months of lists of every survivor and every mastermind. You won't find anybody who's done that for Reverse.
No, absolutely. We actually peeked behind the curtain before the game came out. We were talking about doing something like that. And that talk just stopped as soon as the game came out because you're right. What's the point?
Yeah, there ain't no metas. There isn't anything
more
to
than
stick
anything
to.
else. Yeah, nobody's playing it already, as we know. So there's not really any audience for it. But there you go. I've noticed the same thing when getting rewarded RP depending on the game, and it makes absolutely no sense. But I don't mind too much because I get to sink that RP into the costumes, which I will say are somewhat okay. I'm glad that we have sort of new versions of retro stuff, at least in here. We might not have throwback maps and throwback characters, but we do have a couple of costumes that are like, well, that's kind of neat. Ada has her Umbrella Chronicles bandaged up costume. That's cool. They, again, made for the game. Chris and Jill have their RE5 costumes. Leon base game came with an RE6 costume. I was like, that's neat. Some of them actually look really ugly to me, but I'm glad they're in there as like a retro nod. And we've had a couple of new ones for BOWs recently. And that's cool. But that's about as far as the sort of like Resident Evil celebration, it feels like, goes, is a couple of stinky costumes. Let's talk about BOWs, and then we're going to dig. I'll let you guys dig into Battle Pass because I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to that. But on the subject of BOWs, we talked about how busted they are. Has anybody got any more points on the selection, maybe, of BOWs, Kelsey?
My favourite is Frog Boy, obviously. Love that tail whip.
Yeah.
Just this,
and also, you can actually get, I'll derail us again if I say it.
Go for it.
You can get an actual Frog Boy skin now, like an RE3 classic skin, which is really cool, and you can see they've actually put some effort has gone into that and the new Tyrant skin, like from classic RE2. They look really cool, I have to pay real money for that?
Yeah.
No, it's not happening. Sorry.
Yeah, it's bollocks.
That feels like the entire catch, doesn't it? Like, they've got all these really cool skins from their games that you really want to see. You have to pay for them, though.
Wait a second. They've got the skin from the original RE3.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It
You can
They're
play.
doesn't
like
just come
vestigial
out.
arms that just flap around.
Yeah, they changed like the back spines and the colour's really nice,
Yeah.
and it's like that's really cool. You can't unlock it; you have to pay for it.
So they've done that, but
Yep.
they put the entire Hound Wolf squad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is why I was going to say the only thing that piques my interest about what's coming is the new creature. It's like, okay, what is that? Because it can't be it can't be the same. It can't just be another person like the other ones, surely, unless it's going to be hunter. Unless it's going to be a hunter.
No, that's
just a different skin.
very optimistic.
It'll be a bloody licker. It's always a friggin' licker,
Well,
isn't
okay,
it?
that's interesting.
You're all
Like,
thinking
great if it's a
beyond
licker,
the obvious.
Then
Go
I was
on.
just going to say, well,
It's
that's
a
interesting
lichen.
if it's a licker, because I think
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a lichen because all the moves already exist in the RE engine. You're walking around on 2 feet.
No,
it's just they can drop it.
yeah,
paste
no,
it
that's
in,
what
done.
it will be. You're exactly
It's going to be
right.
that.
Actually,
I'll tell you that now.
I don't want to say. Have we seen that in the trailer? Even I don't know. Maybe I'm imagining it.
I don't know.
But no, my point, Steve, is just that at least it's variation and different. That's what I mean. And because again, it's the same issues. There's unbalancing. Nemesis is too overpowered. The designs look awesome, but we haven't got enough of them. Nice attention to detail, but just wanted more. Dogs, pale heads, spawn the f***ing alligator for all I care, and just nuke the whole map. Like, it's just like I don't know how they've put so much effort and then just kind of stunted the growth. You know what I mean? I guess we've talked about reused assets and stuff like that, and they've made their life easy. But yeah, it's a shame because I like the.
Just to confirm, by the way,
Yeah.
Lycan is in the trailer. I'm watching it
Yeah,
now. He's in the
I
trailer.
knew I
and
wasn't
also,
imagining it.
He's on the
That's
artwork
what's
that
next.
launched with the trailer,
Yeah.
so we should have been really. So it definitely.
That's
is.
definitely what's next. Yeah, that's a shame. That's terrible. Because as I've said, I'm a fan of certain aspects of this game, but yeah, completely lacking in depth and promise for the future for the BOWs, and it's the same sort of thing. I'm not going to talk about all the different mechanics because we'll be here all night, but yeah, the same issues.
I don't know if anyone else has any more notes on BOWs. I think we all just kind of in a big agreement there. I think.
Tyrant and Nemesis are fun.
Yeah, they are
Gamma's
fun.
fun.
Fun to
Yeah.
play as them, yeah.
Jack's okay, and no one wants to play as a molded. Like,
Yeah, that's fair.
Frog Boy is S tier.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. At least Frog Boy gets. At least there's that. Like Frog Boy gets his like shining moment in this game, I suppose.
I kind of wish there was another base no vials tier actually, other than
I agree.
the fat molded, because it feels like you're just pretty much like you're either in the middle of the fray or they've all buggered off somewhere else and just commit suicide there and then.
I wonder, Lycan might slot into that aspect. I mean, he's obviously a bit more powerful than Fat Molded, but I don't know if he's on the same tier as a Hunter Gamma or Jack Baker, so he could be a no virus capsule, I suppose. Guess we'll have to.
God, even more pointless then.
Okay, so I'm going to open the floor for you guys. You touched on it a bit to talk about the Battle Pass. Again, I don't really know or care about any of this stuff. I don't really pay attention to it. As I said, I've not even remotely tried to do any of the challenges. I mean, I barely played the game, so you think I look at this? I don't think so. I think the whole thing is lame. I haven't spent any RP points on a buff. I don't care about any of this stuff in games, so it's not for me.
Well, kind of like James said with the ranking, the thing is, if this game has a good ranking system and a good battle pass, that's sort of like, okay, great, let's build around that and make the gameplay good and polished. Then it could have had life because it's got something to work towards. Because the fact is, these games live off this stuff these days. It's a main reason why I've been playing, because you can go for the challenges and you can, switch up your gameplay. It gives you a reason to play as another character. But because of all the issues we've talked about today with the gameplay and stuff, it just becomes redundant. All the skill and the ranking becomes redundant, and the challenges themselves become redundant. Because, okay, what I will say is the Battle Pass, what you unlock is not terrible. Like Halo Infinite's Battle Pass at launch was god awful, and there was a big load of complaints about everything basically looked the same. There's variation in this Battle Pass and the unlocks, so fine. The only main issue I had is they stuck the wallpapers in the Battle Pass, which is just that's ridiculous for a start. So yeah, cost-wise, it's fine. It's about £1 cheaper than every other battle pass out there. Yeah, it's a shame because effort has gone into building a battle pass that works like a proper battle pass and a ranking system, but the game around it's kind of broken, so it was a waste of time.
James, any thoughts on the battle pass?
Yeah, I do, as usual.
Don't worry, we're nearly done.
Right. There is no point. I'm going to mention it again. I'm going to mention successful multiplayer games because this is what they're trying to do. Whoever is up there above us knows. Like, I don't know why they keep trying to do this. They should just stick to what they know, stick to PvE instead, and do multiplayer. Hello, Outbreak. But instead, they try and do a battle pass / achievement system in a competitive game, which destroys the element of competitiveness. Right, because people will end up just trying to achieve their battle pass instead of actually winning their game. Like, they're just going to be chasing. Like, League of Legends has this, they call them Eternals. And they're really simple things. They're like, kill 10,000 people, kill, 500.
Stuff that you're going to naturally do.
Yeah, exactly. They're
play the
things
game,
that are just going to happen, right? Whereas in this game, they're, no, they're like really obscure and really weird. And not only that, but they have tiers. They have like normal tier and then they have premium tier. And it's like, well, I'm not going to buy premium tier, am I? I don't care. This is a competitive game. I'm not going to do that. Man, like I hate to admit this, but I did play the game a little bit. But there is a company that has done battle passes very, very well. And that is Blizzard. They do, like, I'm going to mention the Forbidden. I don't like this game. It's a bad game, right? But it's done Battle Pass really well, and that's Diablo Immortal. Like, it's got a very good Battle Pass, right? It makes you feel like you have achieved something.
Rewarded, yeah.
Like, you're going to actually get something good. Like, you might get, like, something little for the first 5 levels, but every 10 levels you get something really big and substantial, and it'll be a skin, or it could be extra orbs to get other things, You need to... I know we're all like carrot on a stick people when it comes to these kind of games, right? But that's what video gaming is. It's you want to achieve, you want to... you want to put in the effort and then feel good because you've just been fed the carrot, And this game doesn't have that. It's nothing like that. And the battle pass that they've added isn't really a battle pass. It's just a weird little medal system for a team-based, well, not really a team-based game, half a team-based game. Oh, it makes me mad every time I talk about it, right? But it's like, because I wouldn't even care, I think if you go back and watch our Umbrella Corps episode, like in that podcast, I didn't really care about that game, but the reason why I'm so mad about this one is because I did care about it, right? Yeah. I cared about what it could be, and I can still see its potential, right? But we're not going to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, any thoughts on the Battle Pass?
As a person who plays a few games with like daily challenges and stuff like that, I think you've done like Fall Guys before, Si. That kind of system. It's okay. I understand the reasoning behind it. Is it's a trickle stream of you do these, you get points, you will unlock random things.
I don't mind a daily. I don't mind a game with dailies in it. But certainly.
I would say that the unlocks aren't necessarily all that captivating, especially on the freemium track. Yeah, the premium track's a little better with the odd costume, but most of it's just like an emote or a wallpaper or a thing you can stick on the end of your gun you'll never see.
Yeah, the best emblems on the premium one.
Yeah, it's to me it's a non-factor. It's not something I'm going to chase because there's never anything going to be unlockable that's of any real appeal to me. Yeah. All the good costumes you have to pay for, and I'm a cheapskate, so... I'm not going to be bothered anyway. Yeah, I understand the reasoning, extend gameplay for those that are still keen to go through it and they want to grind it out and lock stuff. Great, extra little ways to freshen up your gameplay. But it's just playing the same mode over and over and over again. Like, I love eating a cheeseburger, but I couldn't eat one every day.
Yeah, I think it's only because of the Battle Pass that I've played it as much as I have, because I look at a game like Halo where I'm less interested in the Battle Pass because I just love playing the varied game modes that it has, so I don't care about the unlocks. But this, it's like, oh, there's no other modes to play. Let's focus on them unlocks because it's all I've got.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I put roadmap next, but I feel like we've kind of like
covered it,
ripped that apart already.
Yeah.
Goody. Well, let's take bets on who's next. Is it K9 or the other one?
Yes.
Oh, it's Carlos. Fuck me sideways. We've got Carlos and Nikolai. Oh my God. You know,
Please.
Marvin Branner. You know, God, I'll take a net Birkin. Like anybody. Where the is William Birkin and his massive pipe?
Yes.
Sorry, Si, you're going to have to bleep the living out of that.
It was always going to happen.
You nearly made it all the way to the end. Well done, Steve. You very nearly did it. All right, do you know what? Right, let's get conclusions done and we can put this one to bed. Final thoughts on Resident Evil Reverse. We are 6 weeks, less than 6 weeks out from the game, which is the most important, obviously, you know, the launch window is when you want to grab people the most. Do you think the game is a success? Do you think the game is a failure? I think, again, the feeling what we're all going to say is very similar. What's your general final thoughts on RE-verse? Steve, would you like to go first?
Whoever okayed this at Capcom really needs to have a sit down and look at the metrics and look at the reaction to this. And like, they can't be completely tone deaf, right? They cannot be tone deaf to the point where they see people going, we want Outbreak, we want Mercenaries, we want Raid Mode, we want a Classics collection, and then go, you know what they need? A 6-player free-for-all game with microtransactions. Let's go, boys. Like, this feels genuinely like a half-arsed asset flip with RE Engine assets to me. Like, I want us to meet halfway. You know, the idea of having all these different cool things from across the Resident Evil mythos in a single game should be fantastic. Instead, it's dross. Like, I could play it probably with friends on an evening, have a fun time. Publicly, it's just a stress simulator where you get stun locked every 5 seconds. It genuinely feels like it would be a bonus mode in the 2000s era of Resident Evil, but it's half-arsed. It upsets me. Genuinely upsets me. Yeah. I got this game for free and I feel ripped off.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect.
I agree. I think I would like to say Capcom may see this as a bit of a lesson, but I highly doubt that's going to be the case because it is just a pointless free throwaway garbage game. But obviously, you know, and we love to talk positively about Resident Evil, and we're in a new sort of golden era of the series in the last 5 years where it's almost been somewhat untouchable in terms of the games. We've had some great games in the last 5 years, and even obviously the most controversial perhaps of those being Resident Evil 3 is still a solid game, whatever you think of it as a quote-unquote remake. But the sort of like Capcom just felt a little bit invincible, I think, recently with the live action stuff, the film and the show, whatever you think about them. Unfortunately, they've kind of both sort of flopped and failed, and this has not gone down well at all. Hopefully, this makes them more careful and measure about where next to go with Resident Evil and sort of non-mainline stuff to just be a little bit more measured in the future. James, what are your final thoughts on RE-verse?
I think somebody walked into the room when this was being pitched, and they did that pitch that Jerry does in Rick and Morty, where he's like, "Welcome to our ad agency. I'm Jerry Smith. All right, I'll just get to the pitch. Simple question, gentlemen. What is Reverse?" And none of them knew. And then we got this. Right? Nobody knew what to do. And then every month someone would come by, right, and they would go, I said this when we played the first time, we put in an hour Reverse time with, hour development time into Reverse every month, It will be done by next year.
Just topping it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This game is really disappointed. It's not disappointed me. It's not a very good game. There are 39 people playing this game right now on Steam. And at a time, and by the way, I don't want to mix words here, right? when this game initially came out on the 28th of October, there were 2,080 people playing this game. Right? Within days, 3 days, I looked at it. There were only 150 people playing. Right? And then it halved again over another 2 weeks. Like, and then I imagine the people that are playing right now are just, they really, really love the game, and fair play to you. That's fine. It's just that they've really missed the mark here. It could have been a very good game, but yeah, it's not a good game. It had a lot of potential, but they squandered that potential and they didn't work on it, and they were offered a better contract in Silent Hill F.
Yeah, fingers crossed for them that they get something to dig their teeth into. You know, it'd be very easy for us to sort of like bemoan Neobards and kind of blame them for it, but we don't know what the situation was. We don't know what they were told to do, what they were given. You know, we've already heard in recent months that Resistance was going to be a completely different game at one point, but Capcom kind of went, no, this is what we're looking for, you know, for better or for worse. So it might be, you know, who knows really why this game is the way that it is. But yeah, I agree. Disappointment is definitely the word.
I it shows you just said I don't blame Neobards for this one bit, and
Absolutely.
I don't either. Like I feel like this is completely a top thing. Like this is a top down thing. They were given a if you're given a recipe, for to make some cookies and you're not given any eggs, like then you can't make the cookies. Right. It's. I mean, I would love to get some insight, maybe a few years down the line, on the development of this game. I'd be so excited to kind of dive into that and see what was said. Because I don't know if this has ever happened before where, I mean, you guys will be able to tell me, but I don't know if this has ever happened before where a game has been delayed this much and still been in this much of a disappointment. Like, in terms of Resident Evil, I mean.
No. Resident Evil's never really suffered with delays, especially not like this. And yeah, that is a massive question mark. It makes you wonder if this game came out in May 2021, what it would have been. Like, how different could it really have looked like, considering that there was a year and a half added on top of that? Yeah. What status was it in May 2021? If this is the final version, is sort of mind-boggling.
I didn't notice a difference. Like, I still had the same kind of... Obviously, there were differences. I know, I'm not completely blind, folks. But, like, it's just... There wasn't enough of a difference. There wasn't a year and a half... difference for me.
Kelsey, final thoughts on our reverse?
I think it's the biggest missed opportunity in the entire history of Resident Evil. I think... There was a spark of fresh, easy-to-play gameplay, this fresh take on the arena shooter. I think it got to maybe 60% in development, and development was probably just shut down. The content omissions after the year and a half delay are inexcusable. The game has clearly been binned off, and whether I'm not saying that's completely the devs' fault. You know, we've talked about top-down decision as well. The devs have obviously moved on to the Silent Hill stuff. As a fan and as a literal investor in Capcom's products, like, to me, this felt like just the biggest slap in my face ever. I was singing the praises of this game since the beta. And I'm always singing the praises of Capcom's engine and the quality of their releases in the years. You mentioned Resident Evil 3 site. Even that, we say is a great game despite hatred from fans. And I spent the best part of a year and a half championing RE-verse, telling vitriolic fans online that they were wrong and to give this game a chance. And I've just been rewarded with a giant slap in the face. So I felt like a idiot. And then I kept playing, and I thought, hey, more stuff will be on the way. This will be good. And yeah, then the second Hound Wolf character dropped, and the game just tore it with me there. And I haven't even touched it since that character dropped. I thought maybe I'll test it out for the podcast. Nah, can't be bothered. Not played it since. There's always a possibility that new modes and polishing is on the way, but I've seen zero evidence that is the case. I don't think it's getting any post support from any senior development. I think it's been handed off to probably, work experienced people to just make sure the servers are running and stuff like that. And it's a shame, really, because as I say, it was an open goal, and they've just f***ed it. And yeah, the gameplay, it hooked me, but it lacks depth, lacks modes, and I'll be honest with you, like, Capcom have lost good faith with me with this game. It's never stood a chance, and I think the people making it either stopped caring and moved on to other things, or Capcom just stopped caring. And either way, I don't like it either way. So hugely disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with all of that. You know, I had a lot of what you just said written down. A similar journey with it, similar feelings with it. There was a spark with this originally. They didn't do anything with that spark. They waited far too long. They wasted a bunch of time, and they clearly did nothing with that time, which is very confusing. And yeah, we try to be positive on the show. You get a very rare that we get an episode quite like this. You know, maybe Infinite Darkness we were very unhappy with, and Umbrella Corps obviously being a tent pole of the other end of things as well. Is this a worse game than Umbrella Corps? No, not really. You know, it's playable. It's not a lot of fun, but it's a playable game. It's just not the worst game in the series by any measure. But it is the disappointment that came with this. And maybe that's on us as fans of like hoping for something out of this. But why wouldn't we hope for something out of this? It's better to be positive, and we haven't been disappointed by Resident Evil quite like this for a long time. So it's sad to be in that position with this. This is a despair of a 25th anniversary celebration, or a 26th and a half, or wherever we're at now. It's a massive missed opportunity, a massive mistake, and I'm with you in the sense that I feel a little bit burned now, to be honest, and it seems very much like Capcom is not really bothered and will just carry on their merry way. Hopefully, Resident Evil 4 Remake will wash this away and we can forget about it. But right now, it is a little bit sore. But there you go. Well, nothing else remains for me but to thank our contributors, our Patreons, and our listeners. Join the First Aid Spray Discord server to become part of our community and to hear the show early and unedited. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and more. All of these links and all of our content can be found at faspraypod.com. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and all good podcasting apps. And if you like what you hear, please do leave us a review where you can and spread the good word. Don't forget you can support the show by picking up some merch or at patreon.com/faspraypod for as little as $1 a month. In our next episode, in happier news, we settle in for a night at the theatre as we take on one of Resident Evil's strangest canonical entries in our look back at Biohazard the Stage. Woo! Thank you to the panel. You can follow all of the Pueblo people individually. I'm at Syniac_123. Steve is at FB Steve Was Taken. James is at Moistowlets OFF, and Kelsey is at K_D_B_. And finally, thank you for listening, and have a good week.
Said after the beta, because the reaction online was so negative, and we thought, okay, they've delayed it. Are they going to drastically change the game because the delay was so big? They just didn't do anything. They clearly just went, no, don't spend any more money on that. They said, tie a bow on it as quick as you possibly can, and then that's what we've got. It's clear. There's no way. They haven't been working on it for a year and a half and given us this. It's not possible.
Can you imagine what the office must have been like, in a hypothetical sense, where they've been working on this for a year and a half? Oh my God, I've got to get the textures right on this desk.
Oh, yeah, of course they haven't.
What the f*** have they been doing?
They've been doing nothing. They've been working on other stuff. It's nonsense.
Oh, God.
I really do think that they panicked.
They did.
At the sort of original reaction to the beta.
Yeah.
And then they were like, what do we do with it?
No
well, we have to release it. We kind of have to do something with it. I don't know what to do with it. Just sit on it for a year, Johnny. And then they came up with a DLC. And then they were like, cool, well, when the DLC comes out, we can just slide this out as well. No one will notice. Yep. And that's what's happening.
They'll never tell.
100%.
The DLC's a slick entree with, garnish, nice chicken, vegetables, and then the next plate of Arivus is just a turd on a plate. which one do I have? You get both! Oh, gee,
Yeah.
thanks, Capcom.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And if you're a Resident Evil podcast, you have to have both. Thanks, Johnny Capcom.
Johnny
After-
Capcom.